video, I will be making retro curry from Japanese Soul Cooking by Tadashi Ono and Harris Salat, published in 2013. This is the book I'd recommend you pick up after working your way through Just One Essentials for cooking authentic Japanese recipes. Right before I made this video, I actually just returned from Japan, and this retro curry is really true to the taste of the curry I had in restaurants while there. It's called retro curry in the book because this is the classic curry that is most common throughout Japan in restaurants. They don't really call it retro curry over there. It's just sort of the best way to describe it, as opposed to other curry dishes that do have specific names to them, like battleship curry. Beyond that, this book has many other recipes for katsus, okonomiyaki, ramen, uh, many other classic Japanese dishes that seem to be pretty in line with the real stuff on my trips over there, and I definitely recommend picking it up if you want to get into making Japanese food at home. Here is the setup for our Japanese retro curry. Now you're going to want to do what I did here and cut and grate as many of the ingredients as possible, because once we get started we're going to be adding them fairly quickly. But just a real quick overview here. We have butter and flour. We have onion chopped. We have rice, Japanese style rice that we will just steam to make plain white rice here eventually. We've got cubed beef. We've got grated apple. It will turn brown quickly once you grate it. It oxidizes fairly quickly, but that's fine. It's going to be a dark brown curry anyway. We have carrot that's been chopped. We have potato that's been chopped. We have grated garlic, and we have grated ginger, as well as the spices curry powder and garam masala. So now that we've done all this prep work to get all this started up here, we're going to go ahead and get started on the stove. We are melting about 2 tablespoons of butter get a nice big heavy stock pot here, because this is going to be a fairly large quantity of curry that we make here. There's a lot of ingredients to fit in. So then we're just going to salt and pepper our pieces of beef. Up. And we'll turn the temperature down on that just a little bit. That's maybe just slightly too hot there. All right. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put this beef in, and we're just going to brown it. We're going to brown it on all sides here, or as much as we can anyway. And that's going to take a few minutes. And it's going to release lots of juices into the pot. So, all right, once the meat is browned, I will be back with you guys. Okay, the meat has been browned, and the next thing we're going to add to the pot is our onion. And we're just going to keep stirring that in and cook it for about another 5 minutes until the onions kind of start to turn translucent. So, all right, I'm going to let this cook while I set up the next ingredients that go in, and I will be back. All right, our onions are just starting to turn translucent, so we're going to add our next set of ingredients here. This is our carrots. We'll go ahead and put those in. And our ginger, we'll go ahead and add that. And our garlic. Now, these ginger and garlic and the apple later, we don't actually want chunks of those things in the curry. We want that to kind of blend in smooth. So that's why they're grated as opposed to chopped like some of the other things like the carrots or the onions. So go ahead and just mix this in. The onions are going to continue to get more translucent over time. The beef is going to continue to release juices and cook. And at this point, it'll start being aromatic from that garlic and ginger that's in there. But this is all just making the base for our delicious curry. If you've never had Japanese curry before, It doesn't always look the most visually appealing because of that dark brown, but it is really good. So, okay, I will see you at the next step. All right, our final set of ingredients here before we really let this cook and let the flavors blend is our grated apple. So we'll go ahead and get that in there. And we're going to put some more salt. And I didn't mention this in the setup ingredients, so I'll go ahead and add a note on the slide indicating that you need this, but you do need 5 cups of beef stock. So we're just going to pour all that in. And what we're going to do once we finish pouring this stock is we're going to cover this and just let it simmer for about an hour. So this is going to be like most curries and moles and other really rich flavored thick stews like this. The longer you cook it, the better the flavor gets, honestly. So, all right, we're going to let that go, and I will see you less than an hour, because we're going to make a roux that's going to make this curry thicken while this continues to simmer. But for now, we're going to let this continue to simmer for about an hour. All right, you can see our curry is just over there simmering. I've also got off screen here on just a normal rice cooker, 1.5 cups of medium grain rice, 2 cups of water. I've got my rice steaming as well. So I've melted 4 tablespoons of butter here, and we're going to make a roux. Which we've done in other recipes as well, but it is a good way to thicken curries and soups and stews. So we melt the butter, we add in the flour, and we just stir constantly to mix these together. And generally speaking, like I've said in previous videos, roux you want to cook longer rather than you don't want to cook on a high temperature, but you'd rather cook them low and slow than go too quickly, because they will burn, or go not cook them long enough and then it doesn't really thicken your stew and it just kind of tastes like flour. So it's going to go through, you'll see it's going to go through phases as we cook it here, where it'll kind of get a little chunky and crumbly as some of the liquid comes out of it. And that's kind of what we're going for here, is we want it to get reduced quite a bit in terms of the liquid, because we want it to interact with the liquid that's in our curry and thicken it and make it nice and thick for us when we pour it with our rice. Okay, while this is continuing to cook, we're going to go ahead and add 2 tablespoons of garam masala into our roux here. I like a lot of spice, so I don't mind going a little high here. And also 2 tablespoons of curry powder. And you'll find as you cook more, when you actually cook spices, it's a dry powder, right? Like, why does it need to be cooked? It actually really unlocks another level of flavor from a lot of these spices when you actually cook them on the stove that you don't get when you just sort of add a dry spice in. Yeah, you can see how chunky this has gotten already, and that's okay. That's good. So we're only going to cook this for about 2 minutes more. Once we have the spices in, like I said, we just kind of want to get those spices toasted, and they'll really start to smell. But again, that's good. That's what we want out of them. We want to get a nice. We don't want it to be like the way it is just quite at this second, where it looks like just like dirt or powder, right? We want it to get sort of congeal into a bit of a paste. a very thick paste. And then once we've gotten to that point, we literally just going to set this aside until we're ready to get to the final. You can see it's kind of starting to come together into a spreadable paste here. So, but we're just going to set this aside and let it cool down and sort of just sit here and simmer a bit. And then once the curry is ready, we still have another step. We have to add the potatoes, right? We haven't added those yet. Once the curry is ready for it, we will add this paste into that, and it will thicken everything up, and then we'll be just about done. So we're getting close to the end here. And you can see in Japanese cuisine also, I just want to make sure I get to the end here and kind of show you guys what this is going to look like once it's done. And it's getting pretty close now. You can see it's kind of just coming together into a paste. But Japanese cuisine, they do a great job in many ways of sort of taking dishes from other cultures, much like American cuisine. They take dishes from other cultures and they make it their own with their own ingredients and put their own spin on it in very unique ways that are really tasty. So obviously curry sort of has, South Asian, Indian origins. And if you eat Indian curry, it's not common that you put apple in it, right? Like that's definitely a Japanese thing. So you'll see that also with the Japanese dish called hamburger, which is different from hamburger, although it is derived from sort of the American hamburger. So, all right, that's looking pretty good. So I'm going to let you guys go because we still got some time to go on our curry simmering there, and I'll pick it up at the next step. Our curry has been cooking for an hour at this point, so we are ready to do the final steps here for making the actual gravy. We're going to go ahead and add our potatoes in at this point. And if for some reason it's evaporated too much water and it's thick at this point, it's okay to go ahead and add in some extra water to sort of get it to this consistency of like almost like a turkey gravy, right? If in like American or like a British gravy that goes on a Yorkshire pudding with a roast or something like that. But this is the consistency that you want at this point for your curry. So the next thing though that we're going to do is we've got our roux over here, and we're just going to get some of that. We're going to get some of that broth out of here. And we're going to mix this together to get a much more liquidy paste. You can see how that's becoming very, very thick but liquid as opposed to the more sort of crumbly solid that it was before. And let's get a little more in there, just a little bit more. We're getting close to the consistency we want. All right, and so now we're going to go ahead and add this to the curry as well, and this is going to cause it to thicken up. You're going to want to pay attention to your curry at this point because this flour and butter mixture, you definitely don't want to have your stove on too high. This flour and butter mixture can burn if you let it just sit in the curry without stirring it. So we're going to go ahead and get that in there. And if you let it cook for too long, eventually the flour or cornstarch or any other sort of thickening agent that's made along those lines will wear out, right? It sort of runs out of steam as far as thickening power, and it'll go back to being liquid again. You kind of see this in gumbo sometimes if people let the roux part cook a little too long. So, alrighty. Let's go ahead and get that mixed in there. And at this point, we're going to we're going to really get this mixed in really good. And at this point, we're going to let this cook uncovered for about another 20 minutes. And then this part will be done and we can sort of do the final assembly here. So definitely, you don't have to stir it constantly, but once you get all the ingredients mixed in here, definitely just stir it from time to time over the course of the next 20 minutes to make sure the bottom doesn't burn. All right, I will see you at the final assembly. And here is our retro curry. I do have one finishing touch, and this is completely optional, unnecessary, but I think it looks pretty, and I like to do it because I grow. This is Japanese chives. It's called negi. It'll be pretty difficult to find it at any sort of grocery store, even probably an Asian market in the USA, but it's really easy to grow yourself, and I just like to sprinkle that to put a little green on the plate over the rice and to sort of add a little bit of extra sort of authentic Japanese flavor. It's really easy to grow, and seeds are pretty easy to come by too if you just search for it online. So if you like to garden like I do, get yourself some negi, and here we go. This is our Japanese retro curry. If you like my videos, please like and subscribe, and try this dish out because it's really good, and we'll see you next time.